Hi, I'm Mason Duchatschek,
Mich Hancock.
and today we wanted to talk about a topic that's not real pleasant, but it is important,
Right.
and that is workplace violence and how to prevent it.
And violence, I was sharing with Mason that I recently did an event for TEDx Gateway Arch, and we had Dr. Lori Punch on our stage, and she was talking about violence is an epidemic. I mean, it's scary how it's so out there right now.
Well, I stumbled across an article that I wanted to share with our viewers and with our listeners. It was business.com. It was called Workplace Violence, How Your Business Should Prepare and React, and it was written by Sky Schooley, who's one of the business writers for the site. And I thought there were some good ideas in there. And
some really interesting information.
It was. One of the first things that she talked about was identifying high-risk industries and employees. Then she talked about creating a workplace violence plan, training employees on workplace violence and prevention guidelines, and then suggested a simple checklist to ensure a violence-free work environment. A couple of things that I thought were interesting. Did anything jump out at you on this, Mish?
Well, I think it is really important to, if you have a high-risk work environment, and she talked about what does that mean? People that deal with the public a lot, people that, she called out like social workers and people that deal with psychological type issues with people.
Yes.
Those are high-risk industries for violence. So putting awareness on that is a big deal. But it's also something you and I have talked about often is, are you matching the right person for that particular environment?
Yes.
You know, if you're hiring someone that really can't handle that kind of, is not good with the public, right? That has a short fuse or what have you, that's not the place for that person.
Right.
So knowing that up front will help you in the end. You're making sure you're putting the right people in the right place.
Some of the other risk factors that the author talked about in this article were things like substance abuse. I mean, if someone's got a substance abuse issue,
Right.
It could tend to be a little bit more volatile and less reasonable, could overreact to things that they might not overreact to. And the other thing we talked about doing was background checks,
Right.
reference checks.
Yep.
Now, obviously, a lot of folks will only give
They're not going to
employers
give you references.
bad references.
If they do, you really got to worry.
But I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, because you might get lucky and get some feedback from someone
Exactly.
that could help you, and you can't get it if you don't ask for it.
Right.
Drug tests, obviously, I'm a fan of those as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, particularly if someone's operating heavy machinery, equipment, things like that, where they could cause harm to themselves or to others
Right.
if they're operating under
The influence of
influence
something.
of substance. But,
Yeah.
but even on that, drug tests only show you someone's been clean for roughly 30 days.
Right.
Hopefully, give or take
Right.
for you, but unless you're doing hair tests. But the downside of that is, what about people who've got high risk attitudes? You don't know. So I am a fan of and proponent of and provider of assessment tools that measure attitudes towards substance abuse.
Yeah.
And in the realm of, since we're talking about the topic of assessments and employment tools, I'm going to piggyback on what the author said here. She talks about, the high-risk work environments. I want to know two things as an employer when it comes to matching a person to the job. I want to know how they match the job, and I want to know how they match the supervisor they're working with.
Right. The relationship is huge.
Because that old saying, people don't quit their company, they quit their boss.
Right.
Well, in a case like, in a topic such as violence in the workplace, I think turnover, as expensive as it is,
Right.
and as much of a hassle as it is, it would be preferable if a high-risk, volatile employee left than if they stayed.
And then cause bigger problems. Right. Exactly.
So,
Sometimes turnover is a good
a
thing.
lesser of two evils in this case.
Right.
Ideally,
You
in
don't
the
have
real
right.
world, you get the right person in the right position the first time, working for the right person, and you don't have the drama, the conflict that
Because turnover is expensive.
it is.
It just is.
But compared to workplace violence, which is bad press,
Right.
lawsuits,
Going to cost you less. If you have to do turnover in this instance, yes.
correct. So I mean, if you take a position of someone who's and these are traits you can measure. You can measure someone's tension level. Someone's super high strung,
Right.
And they are not flexible. Flexibility is another trait you can measure. I've got different assessment tools that measure those things. But
Right.
if I just take two of those traits, and there's a bunch of different traits you can measure, but let's just say I took two of them, then I want to know if I got a high tension person who's inflexible and they're put in a work environment that requires them to be to deal with stuff that changes all the time.
Right. Yes. If they can't deal with a high rate of change, and you're in a high rate of change environment, this will not work.
And if they're super high tension,
Yeah.
super high strung, and if they're additives or substitutes, they come to work under influence. I mean, that's just like the trifecta of bad news.
This is not good.
So
This employee will not do.
So,
Yeah.
And there's other things where you actually may have an employee, you do a good background check, you do a good reference check, you find out that they're a good fit, blah, 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 and maybe they don't match with a particular supervisor. There
Right.
are behavioral assessment tools out there that you can use, and I am a proponent of, that can help you look at the relationship between team leaders and team members and
Exactly.
where points of conflict are likely to occur and solve them before they occur,
Right.
solve them before they happen.
Right.
Or if you've got super combustible elements, it's just like keeping gasoline and sparks separated.
Right. Yeah. Good
So,
idea.
Both gasoline and fire are both very useful,
Need them for something,
but
not together.
not so much. I think that if employers can minimize risks on things like that, and it's not even just with applicants, it's current employees. I mean, if you've got
Exactly. I was going to ask about that. Like, can they give this sort of test to the employees they have right now?
There are assessment tools that you can administer, behavioral assessment tools that you can administer to current employees that will
Yes.
evaluate their behavioral style. And when you evaluate the behavioral style in comparison to what a job requires, you can identify risk areas.
Right.
And it's not difficult to do. The same, you can also utilize behavioral assessments. There are ways to evaluate the relationship between team leaders and team members.
Okay.
And one of the ways, if a company has a very good employee, one of the ways to get that good employee, or keep that good employee, may just be to put them under a different supervisor.
Right.
So you get the benefit of that good employee. They can stay a long time. The risk of tension and conflict is reduced, and everyone wins. But that's not stuff I would leave to guesswork.
Right. No. Well, and also many times if you have the conversation up front, and these tools allow you to have that conversation up front.
In non-threatening ways.
Right.
Because if I'm sitting here and evaluating, you say, "Oh, Miss, I'm your supervisor, and I think you're doing this wrong, and this wrong, and this wrong."
I'm on the defense.
And she may want to be kicking me in the shin,
Right.
Or sabotaging my work projects or whatever it is she wants to do because she thinks I'm being a jerk, which I might be being a jerk.
Right.
But irrelevant. But the point is when you have something, a third-party tool or system that can, I guess, make very important and necessary conversations that are uncomfortable happen because they're necessary, then the company wins.
The other thought too is maybe you're not being a jerk. Maybe that's your way of thinking you're being helpful. You know what I mean? And so having those open lines of communication, having the tools to help you have the open lines of communication, that's going to help everybody.
Yes.
Because it may just be, all right, Mason, when you talk to Mish, this is probably a better way to talk to her.
Yes.
Or Mish, when Mason is talking like that, you may need to remind him, wait, it sounds like you're really mad at me. Are you mad at me?
Right.
I'm not mad at you. Wait, you're taking that. So it's like having that open line of communication, and that can help everything and everybody around you in your workplace, right?
Yes, absolutely. A couple other things I thought were very interesting about her article. She talked about creating a workplace violence plan, said that, and I guess, let's see, who was it that in the article they talked about assessing how to assess a potentially violent situation, how to report incidents of workplace violence, how to get help, warn other employees, and secure the workplace when needed, when and how to involve the police and gather information to assist in an investigation, and also figure out how you will initiate follow-up activities like debriefing employees and resuming operations. That makes sense.
It's great. I mean, it's great to have a plan like this. You don't ever want to have to implement it.
Implement it, yes, use it.
Yeah, like we hope you never have to implement it, and maybe some of these tools can help to lessen the need to ever implement it, but it is definitely something that they should have.
Like an insurance policy. I don't want to. I don't want to have to use it, but I want to be glad I had it.
Exactly.
In case something
Exactly.
Then she talked about training your employees in workplace violence prevention guidelines. And then when it got down to following a simple checklist to ensure a violence-free work environment, thought the author was on point. Made comments about creating a zero tolerance policy for work violence.
Yep.
I mean, that's a no-brainer. Establishing a process where employees can safely and anonymously report threatening activity, no matter where it comes from.
That's really good.
I think so too.
And I think that leaves employees that you're going to feel safer if you know there's a place that someone you can go talk to, that you're not going to be like, oh, so so-and-so came to my office and told me this about you, right? You know, I think it's very good.
Implement the see something, say something policy.
Yeah.
Install security entrances and video surveillance. That way people, it's odd though. I think sometimes, you have to have it. So you would think people think, hey, I'm being watched. I need to be considerate and conscientious about how, but sometimes people just get so comfortable with that stuff.
Well, that's reality shows,
Yes.
right? That's why reality shows can become reality shows, because at some point they forget the cameras are there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, again, does it need it? Absolutely.
Yes.
However, that's certainly, none of these things are catch-all, end-all.
No.
Establish safe places for employees to take refuge during violent events. Consider identification badges and electronic key access to the workplace. Potentially hire security guards, particularly if the business is in a high crime area.
Right.
Develop the right security plan and consult with security experts. I like that.
Yeah, it's a really good article.
I thought it was
Really
on point, and it draws attention to something that you hear about these workplace violence issues that erupt, and you think, how come no one saw this coming?
Almost with 2 million, right? Wasn't that what she said in the article? That 2 million people per year experience violence in the workplace?
It was, let's find out right now.
2 million
Yes.
American
Workplace
workers
violence
victims.
can range from threats and verbal abuse to physical assaults and even homicide, making it one of the leading causes of job-related deaths. OSHA says that nearly 2 million American workers are the victims of workplace violence each year.
That's pervasive.
That's a lot of
That's an
workers.
epidemic.
And my hope is that anybody listening or watching today can take some of these thoughts and some of these perspectives and implement them in their businesses so that the risk of workplace violence in their place of business is minimized.
As much as possible, yeah.
They don't end up being part of the statistics on there. Because this is one of those things where it's like, well, I can't imagine that happening here. Well,
Neither could anybody that's probably dealing with it.
right.
Yeah.
So, best wishes to each of you listening and watching, and I hope this has been helpful.
Thank you.